Republicans are eating their own. Republicans are putting other Republicans through a purity test. And listen, you guys can't be mad. I've been warning you for 3 fucking years. If you're not extreme enough for your party, they will get rid of you. If you speak out against your party, they will get rid of you. Look at how they're treating Kevin McCarthy. Look at how they talk about Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney. This is what Republicans expect you to be like if you're going to be a part of their party. Completely lost touch with reality. You must be a joyful warrior. Kevin McCarthy screamed at his caucus at his house today, or yesterday. State Senate Republicans in Wisconsin have voted to oust a nonpartisan election chief over concerns that she is not Republican enough ahead of the 2024 election. She's not Republican enough. I'll cover up his face. Republicans, they are coming after you. If you don't fall in line, if you don't allow the indoctrination of your children, if you do not ignore the fact that the moms of Liberty's sons are raping your daughters, then you are persona non grata. Mitt Romney had to pay $5,000 a day for security for his family because of MAGA. Now, I don't feel sorry for him, but understand you can't afford $5,000 a day, but Mitt Romney can. He's got Bain Capital. Are you not seeing it yet? They will turn on you. They will turn on you. And when you find out that your child cannot get into an Ivy League school or a college because your Republicans push the classic learning test, an alternative to the ACT and SAT that puts emphasis on religious writing, you will have nobody to blame but yourself.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for a special edition of Conversations with Taz, the Sunday Sit-Down. I know we usually only meet on Sundays when Royal Star is here, but so much happened over the weekend. If I don't do it tonight, we will be together for quite a few hours tomorrow. Like, I kid you not. I got notes, and then I had to take notes on the notes. It's a lot. Let's start with the hottest topic that kicked off the weekend. Yeah. The fact that Ken Paxton was acquitted and the way things were stacking up for him, but his behavior was kind of showing that he wasn't taking it seriously. But let's get into it because all hope is not lost, okay? So the accusations that were within the impeachment articles were misconduct, bribery, and corruption. Only 2 from the GOP voted for conviction. Everybody else primarily voted along party lines. The Senate trial only lasted 2 weeks. The GOP claims that the investigation was rushed, and that's why they did not vote to convict. Paxton, after being acquitted and reinstated as Attorney General of Texas, blamed the Biden administration for the proceedings. Although many who testified were Republicans and had their republicanism questioned for doing so. And after the acquittal, Paxton has begun courting primary opponents to those that voted against him. The intimidation is real. This trial in the Senate, the Texas Senate, has become a loyalty test for the GOP down there. Now let's go back to how all of this began, how Paxton ended up with articles of impeachment against him. So this all began in the fall of 2020. There were a number of whistleblowers, 8, from Paxton's office. They were part of his executive staff. In October 2020, the whistleblowers went to the FBI believing that Paxton had essentially turned his office into a law firm for Nate Paul, an Austin investor. Now, Nate Paul was also under FBI investigation, and over the summer, he was formally charged. Now, before the articles of impeachment, Paxton had agreed to pay a $3.3 million settlement with the 8 whistleblowers. And here's where Paxton had all the Anglo audacity, okay? And earlier this year, he wanted the taxpayers to foot the bill. He took it to the House, and the House of Texas stated that in order to do so, they needed to know the exact details of the accusations waged against Paxton. Therefore, an investigation was launched, which resulted in 20 articles of impeachment against Paxton. Now, after the House was like, yeah, he's impeached, get him out of there. Get him out of there. The GOP in Texas started pressuring with money, claiming that they weren't going to donate money to certain people, well, the vulnerable of the Texas GOP. Paxton then went on to label the Republican Speaker of the House in Texas as a liberal. And this is one thing I think not too many people realize. The Texas Republican Party is the most radical in the United States currently. In 2022, they passed a resolution calling Biden an illegitimate president, therefore not acknowledging his authority as president. Now, there are people who believe that this acquittal will further embolden Paxton, but y'all, it's not a slam dunk, okay? There is still an ongoing federal investigation, and he still is facing state security fraud charges. He also has two, not one, but two ongoing complaints to the Texas bar, which could result in multiple sanctions. So, yeah. No, it's not a good thing that he's being reinstated as Attorney General, but the legal woes are not over, and these are legal woes he can't cover up. So he didn't exactly get away scot-free. Quite honestly, if I was him, I would have just resigned and started preparing my defense for all of these other things coming my way. And let's not forget, Trump and Paxton are like this, because no sooner than we found out that the Senate acquitted Paxton, Trump, of course, was on Truth Social praising Paxton, yada, yada, yada. Now, do have some updates regarding the Trump cases. Coming out of Fulton County, the district attorneys will be back in court tomorrow. Now, regarding the gag order request that came down just a couple of days ago from Jack Smith, here's a caveat. In the previous hearing from August, Judge Chutkan warned that if Trump kept spewing misinformation, she would move up the trial date. And remember, Trump's whole strategy with all of these trials is to delay, delay, delay. So that might incentivize him to shut the fuck up. And in the gag order request, the prosecution cited previous Trump attacks. And these Trump attacks, most notably against Chris Krebs, which was Trump's former cybersecurity aide, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, the former election workers, and Jeff Duncan, the former Georgia lieutenant governor. And you know what? Those of y'all that keep getting attacked and doxxed by Trump and his base, there are a shit ton of attorneys that would take your case pro bono, or at least on a contingency. Start suing him. Start suing him. Force him to put his money where his mouth is. Don't just sit back and wait for the Department of Justice and all these DAs and all these attorney generals to keep the public at large safe. No, they're doing the best they can within the legal parameters that they are currently in. And we know Trump is going to continue to rile up his base by claiming that it's election interference. What election interference can he claim out of a regular, schmegular citizen suing the shit out of him because he's continuously putting regular people's lives in danger? Start suing him. Now, regarding the Twitter subpoena, prosecutors fought to block Twitter from informing Trump of the subpoena, and that was back in April of 2023. They feared that he would attack and incite violence and possibly intimidate witnesses, which we know he has a very, very, very long history of doing that. Hold on. Why did I hit that? Jesus. So much has happened this week that it's done fried my brain. Oops. Just realized that there were 2 videos I did not send over. Now, the Colorado 14th Amendment case to keep Trump from making it onto the ballot, the judge officially denied Trump's motion to move that to federal court. So, yeah. Not looking so hot for him. And there we go. In Minnesota, Free Speech for the People filed suit to prevent Trump from being placed on the 2024 ballot for president. Per Ron Stein, the group's legal director, the group plans to file in multiple states as well. Well, once that broke, there were a couple of updates in the wee hours of last night. Yes, in the wee hours of last night. So the petition was filed directly with the Minnesota Supreme Court. They ain't even fooling with the lower courts on September 12th of this year. It was filed to enforce the disqualification clause against Trump. This filing could create a domino effect through all 50 states. Now, per Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard professor, he says the following about this case, that it is rock solid as a legal matter, relying entirely on existing law and indisputable facts of public record. Oops. And Lawrence Tribe, we talked about him when we first started discussing this whole 14th Amendment and the plausibility of it preventing Trump from ever taking any type of office again, especially on the federal level. Lawrence Tribe is regarded as one of the preeminent scholars in the field of constitutional law. Also, I need you to keep in mind that the 14th Amendment has only been used twice since the late 1800s, and it was predominantly used against former Confederates, which is super ironic given that most of Trump's fan base claims that the Confederate flag and honoring and cosplaying the Confederacy is heritage, not hate. Now, on to Mitt Romney, who's trying to go out looking like he's doing something great, but he's not. So Mitt Romney claims that most Republicans don't believe in the Constitution. Romney has played the same two-faced game that he's now calling out his fellow GOP members as he exits. Now, it keeps being quoted that Romney comes from the age of the Reagan 11th Amendment, which means you don't talk ill about your fellow Republicans in public. You just do it behind closed doors. But Romney's saying that this person is disloyal, like all of these people aren't telling the public. Neither did you, Romney. You're only telling it now through a book and not even through your own words. You announced your retirement under the guise of making room for younger generations to lead things into the future because you knew all of these articles were coming out with excerpts and snippets from your book where you were talking hella shit. You didn't nuck if you buck. You're criticizing people for lying to the American people and duping the American people just like you did. You get no praise from me. All these videos, like, I can't believe that I'm agreeing with Mitt Romney. Anywho, And let's not forget that Mitt Romney is the same person who organized a major event surrounding the Trump endorsement that he previously had. And he supported Trump's 2016 campaign even after Birthergate and the infamous comment regarding women and so much more. And keep in mind, he's still claiming that his retirement is to make room for younger voices. He also heavily blasts Senators Vance, Hawley, and Cruz. I'm like, but they learn from the likes of you. The timing the timing of his retirement announcement and his book coming out and all of the nuggets in his book, it sounds good. It sounds like, oh, well, Taz, don't criticize him. At least now it's coming out. Which Republican voter is going to be focused on it? Think about the timing right now. What are they focused on? The Republican voter base is focused on Hunter Biden, Trump's legal woes, and the clown car of presidential candidates coming out of the GOP. Nobody's paying any attention on the GOP side of what Romney's saying. And given what he's saying, what heavily propagandized right-wing media outlet is going to quote him? He knew just when to drop this. And for everybody that's like, but he's a hero. He's finally speaking. No, the fuck he's not. You're not a hero when you got expensive security. You're on your way out, so you don't really have to face the music. And you're doing it in a way that he's doing it old school. Like I've told y'all tons and tons of times before, they care about legacy and the footnote that they will have in the history books. Because when you watch the news right now, they're touting this as, oh, look, Nancy, take a page out of Mitt's book. Oh, da-da-da. Lie to the American people. And then when shit gets hot, and you may not have a party left, then tell all the secrets when everybody's distracted by everything else. That's like a cheating spouse admitting that they cheated on their spouse in the midst of a hurricane. Yeah, technically you got it out. Technically you confessed. Do you think that your spouse is paying you any attention as they're running for their lives? Now on to Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is setting himself up to be the most ineffective speaker thus far in history. He wanted the position so badly that he signed essentially a deal with the devil. And at this point, it appears that his second in command, Marjorie Taylor Greene, has more power and influence than he does. Because last week, she even met with Trump. Trump is still meeting with GOP committee members on Capitol Hill. And McCarthy faces continued pressure as the government shutdown looms due to the Magadonians not being realistic and properly compromising. These people are posturing so much to their sycophant constituency that they're literally negotiating unrealistic, fantastical terms. And McCarthy recently was quoted as saying, an impeachment inquiry is not an impeachment. No shit. He knows that the MAGA crowd just want to posture to Trump and the base because Trump keeps saying, well, if they wouldn't have done it to me, we wouldn't do it to Biden. This is not a fucking tit for tat. This is not Mikey took my cookies out my lunch yesterday. So I'm going to take the cookies out his lunch today. The fuck? And here's the thing. we know Matt Gaetz and a couple other people are threatening McCarthy, like, oh, we'll unseat you, we'll unseat you. This is what they're not realizing. The Democrats alone have the votes to keep McCarthy where he is. And it works out for the American populace as a whole to keep McCarthy as Speaker of the House and keep the Republicans infighting in their little makeshift civil war as they decimate their own party so that the Democrats can focus on getting shit done. And now Democrats get the shit passed through. Get the shit passed through. Because whoever makes it into, we learned this from Boebert, remember, whoever makes it into those chambers when it's time to vote, that's the majority of the vote that gets passed. If the GOP as a whole wants to chill in McCarthy's office and argue, fuss, and fight and WWE smack down each other, go ahead. MTG suplo flex the fuck out of Boebert in there, okay? Let's get ready to rumble. And Democrats, get in there, play the GOP's game for the people. Play the game for the people. Because people forget about that all the time. Like, keep them in there. Let them keep not showing up. Get this legislation passed. And got more information on the latest Fox News lawsuit that I told you about the other day. The New York Pensions Fund and indeed the state of Oregon, I was able to confirm that is a part of this lawsuit. Fox is being accused of neglecting its duty to shareholders by opening itself up to defamation cases. This stems from the lies Fox told regarding the 2020 election, which resulted in a $787.5 million settlement with Dominion Systems this past April. The suit also claims Fox's actions are a breach of fiduciary duty. Fox's board, this is a quote, Fox's board of directors has blatantly disregarded the need for journalistic standards and failed to put safeguards in place despite having a business model that invites defamation litigation. That is from Brad Lander, who is the NYC comptroller. Now, the pension fund covers teachers, first responders, your crossing guards, etc. So they are not playing about their money. And nobody wants their retirement funds to be liquidated to pay for defamation costs. Hint, hint, citizens, start banding together, start putting together class action suits against your local police departments so that you as a taxpayer are no longer responsible for when a police officer murders, maims, or permanently injures somebody. They have to pay for it out of pocket. So the goal of the lawsuit is for governance reform to block shareholders from paying out claims. And the fund, the New York City Pensions Fund, has previously sued and won against a company due to that company having multiple sexual harassment suits and claims. So this is tried and true. There is precedence in favor. Now, Fox still faces a lawsuit from Smartmatic regarding voting machines due to the 2020 election. Now, before we get into the Biden election inquiry, remember when we were talking about the whole Nazis? Well, this most recent time that the Nazis showed up in Florida and everybody was showing that clip saying, see, they're going for Biden. And I said, no, that is a tactic. That is a tactic. They're saying this at the end when the news cameras are there. Take a look. Y'all can doubt me about a lot of things, but
here you fucking go. Here is the proof. These are Ron DeSantis supporters.
Well, first of all, Elena, you didn't show any proof whatsoever. You just showed them on the bridge and claimed they supported DeSantis.
Starting off really strong with the misinformation. It's Ileana, not Elena. Simple mistake, I know. But I actually did show the proof. Because if you actually watch the video I included in my original video, you'll see the Nazis saying, vote for DeSantis. Here you go, I'll show you exactly where it was.
White power!
This is the video I included.
Vote for Ron DeSantis.
That's the proof. Look at that. I did show the proof. Now, I did have the volume turned down, but I did also provide the sources in the comments of exactly where I got those videos so that people like you could go watch them yourself. Let's continue.
But you know what, Elena? I do have some proof for who they support. Let's hear it from the leader of that group when he was interviewed.
You're going to vote in 2024? What do you think's going to happen with
My vote is useless. I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine.
See, Elena, that's what proof looks like. And it's really amazing that you didn't.
You're right, I didn't show that part. But you know what I think is interesting is that you're trying to call me out for being dishonest or using just a segment of a video to prove my point when you're doing exactly the same thing. Now, to me, it seemed clear that the people flying the Nazi flags and the DeSantis flags next to one another and saying vote for Ron DeSantis were Ron DeSantis supporters. Clearly, you understood one person saying that he supports Biden over Trump to mean that they all support Biden. And yes, I understand he's the leader, but he also said my vote doesn't matter. So I'm not sure he's the perfect political representation of the entire group of Nazis. Let's keep going.
What you did was show them on the bridge just acting ridiculous.
Saying that these neo-Nazis are just acting ridiculous is such a disgusting minimization of what they're actually doing. It's not at all surprising to me coming from you, because you and your supporters are one step away from being on that bridge yourselves. And you know how I know that? Because of the dozens and dozens of comments that I've gotten from your followers on my video saying things like, how do I join? And looks fun, I'm going to move to Florida. And it's not at all surprising to me that people in your comments section have taken it upon themselves to criticize the two features on my face that are decidedly Jewish, my nose and my ears. And it wasn't lost on me that you liked those comments and made it very clear that you thought those comments were hilarious. Let's watch the rest of the video and then I'll share my final thoughts.
But I will applaud you, though. So many people wanted to believe your opinion was actual fact that you got 3.6 million views on a video where you just stated your opinion. That's pretty damn good. And because I'm calling out Biden on this video with actual proof, I will get significantly less views. In fact, I'm pretty sure TikTok will try to give me a community guideline violation, even though you made an entire video showing them doing all their protests, and I just showed a 10-second clip showing where they supported Biden. But hey, that's TikTok. Us conservative creators are pretty used to it by now.
Whining about the views that I got on my video seems like a very weird way to end this, but if that's the hill you want to die on, fine. What I'd like to point out is that throughout this entire video, you did not say a single negative thing about the people flying Nazi flags and doing the Nazi salute and screaming white power. Instead, you defended them. That makes it crystal clear where you stand. Now, I know you won't care, and honestly, you'll probably think it's funny given your comments section. But anti-Semitism is real and it is growing, especially among conservatives. Since I posted my video, I have gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of anti-Semitic comments and violent threats. And since you posted your video, those have increased exponentially. I know exactly who your followers are and what they support, and so do you. Your rhetoric of defending Nazis and laughing at anti-Semitism is vile. My family members were murdered by the Nazis, so I'm not going to let people like you bully me into silence. Today is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, the first of the High Holy Days. So to all my Jewish friends and followers, I am so sorry that this hateful rhetoric has ended up on your page, but I love you. I will continue fighting for us, and I will always speak out against anti-Semitism. Shana Tova, my friends.
Couple of points. We are totally against anti-Semitism, but Nazis showing up on United States soil goes further than just an attack on Jewish people. And we do have to keep that in mind, because that same rally of white nationalists cosplaying as Nazis, because white nationalism predates Nazism. The Nazis learned from the racists in the United States. Let's keep that in mind. That little rally was broken up because a Black man confronted them and they started hurling racial slurs at them. But if you remember, I told y'all, when on camera, they're going to try to put forth the narrative that they've been putting forth, that the Democrats are the racist ones, and it's the Democrats and Antifa and Black Lives Matter and the leftists and the liberals that are doing all the racist stuff. These are the same people who would dress in all black and put on a mask and go spark up a fire doing a BLM march. These are the same people who showed up armed to the teeth with, ammunition and AR-15s at Black Lives Matter marches. These are the same people who were at January 6th participating in an insurrection, bragged about it in 4K, and turned around and put up tons of posts and started trolling people online, going, no, that was a left, that was a setup. They're just trying to make us look bad. When have you known them to ever take credit for what they actually do? They do it proudly, and for 2 seconds, they'll be all over their social media. Oh, yeah, that's us. Yeah, we took it back. No, we don't know what you, that was them over there. Soon as they find out that everybody in the government, everybody on the police force isn't with them, just like I told y'all, in New York and Maryland for a very long time, it was quite popular and common for slave owners to not release their slaves, but sit on abolitionist boards and advocate for gradual abolition, and turn around and say that the slaveholders down in the South were the horrible ones. Ain't shit changed. Stop letting them play in your face. Quit letting yourself be outsmarted by the Gomer Pyles of the fucking world. But let's get into the Biden impeachment inquiry. Now, this inquiry is already starting off all sorts of fucked up. It's invalid without a chamber vote. This is a requirement that was added during the Trump administration after Pelosi called for Trump's impeachment inquiry without a chamber vote. Notice a pattern? Trump pushed for all of these changes. And that's what's catching him up. That's what's biting him in the ass right now. The changes he made so he could cheat. Great forethought and planning. There's also no basis for an inquiry. This is obviously retaliation for Trump and a distraction campaign. Now let's go through the claims that they're making towards Biden to try to justify this impeachment inquiry. Okay? They say that Biden lied to the American people about his knowledge of his family's foreign businesses. It's actually unclear what Biden knew about Hunter's business dealings. Because when they say family business dealings, they mean what Hunter did on his job. So, Biden didn't even know that Hunter made money in China. And this is per a very public speech in 2020. Next claim, they say that eyewitnesses have testified that Biden joined multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions that resulted in cars and millions of dollars for Hunter and his business partner. That comes from a press conference that McCarthy had. Devin Archer, one of the former business partners of Hunter Biden, per Daniel Goldman, from a closed-door conversation and inquiry, said Hunter put Biden on speaker with business partners and others approximately 20 times in 10 years, and they didn't talk business. You know, how you doing? How your kids doing? How's the weather over there? Y'all doing good? Oh, okay. As most people do, if they have a notable family member and that family member calls them at work to check up on them, hey, can you talk to the fellas real quick? Yeah. Next claim, that $20 million in payments were made to Biden's family members and associates via shell companies. Now, they always utilize shell companies because generally in movies, shell companies are made to sound like the boogeyman. Before we go further with these claims, let's break down what shell companies actually are. It is a company A shell company is a company that primarily or solely exists on paper only. It has no significant assets linked to the company, has no goods, services, etc. It functions to generate revenue for itself. It's generally used to obtain financing or maintain control over a conglomerate company. And it provides more favorable tax treatment. So, all in all, it's a tax shelter, which most wealthy people utilize. No boogeyman there. Now, through a thorough investigation, it was determined that none of this money was directed to Biden. Hunter Biden had LLCs and shell companies, once again, financing tax purposes. Next claim is that the Treasury Department has more than 150 transactions from the Biden family and associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. This, once again, is per McCarthy. Now, keep in mind, the filing of an SAR by itself doesn't necessarily trigger an investigation, and it doesn't even mean that an investigation is warranted. Now, a SAR is a suspicious activity report, and it's generally filed due to unusual transaction amounts or frequency. The transactions may involve a new customer with no prior banking history, specifically at that financial institution, and the transactions may involve a high-risk company, a high-risk country or entity. Now, these 150 transactions were business transactions. And also realize anything $10,000 or above is going to be flagged. This was also investigated thoroughly and no wrongdoing was found. Then a whistleblower claims that as vice president, Biden engaged in a bribery scheme with a foreign national. This is per James Comer. You may know this story as the Burisma case. That was thoroughly debunked by Devin Archer, and in 2019, a Burisma executive stated that no one at the company had ever had contact with Biden. Then most recently, the claim is Hunter Biden received special treatment through the Justice Department, although we know he was recently charged with 3 felonies regarding his October 2018 purchase of a Colt Cobra revolver while he was in active narcotic addiction. And this is after he had already been previously charged with this and signed a plea deal. And these charges are, like I said before, are not generally charged unless they coincide with like a violent felony. Now we're going to get into today's interview that was on Meet the Press. And keep in mind that Kristen Welker, the woman who conducted the interview, she is the latest moderator of Meet the Press. And this was her debut episode. This was her debut interview. So, way to kick it off with the bang. But let's get into Trump's appearance over the weekend.
Yeah, Donald Trump is losing his mind, right? Like, he is in mental decline. He's not all there anymore, and even Republicans are going to have to start admitting it soon. Because last night at a speech, Donald Trump claimed that Biden is trying to arrest Barack Obama. Like, what is this guy talking about? Take a look at the clip.
Joe Biden and the radical left thugs who have weaponized law enforcement to arrest their leading political opponent, leading by a lot, including Obama. I'll tell you what, you take a look at Obama and take a look at some of the things that he's done. This is the same thing. The country is very...
What? Biden's leading political opponent is Obama, and Biden's trying to arrest Obama? Yeah, this guy's not okay. Oh, and that's not the only thing that happened last night. Donald Trump also claims that Biden is leading us into World War II. Yeah, take a look at the clip.
History of our country, who is cognitively impaired, in no condition to lead, and is now in charge of dealing with Russia and possible nuclear war. Just think of it. We would be in World War II
World War II? Buddy, you're like 80 years too late. So apparently Biden is running against Obama and trying to have him arrested, and apparently Biden's also leading us into World War II. That's according to Donald Trump. I just know that if President Biden said anything like this, Republicans would be freaking out. They'd be saying, oh, he's losing his mind, he's in cognitive decline, but when Donald Trump does it, they brush it off. They don't care. I mean, look, if Republicans really want to talk about candidates' mental state, I'm happy to have that conversation because your guy thinks we're going into World War II and that Obama is a leading candidate. That's what your guy thinks. I mean, look, we always knew that Donald Trump was crazy, right? Like, no sane person believes the conspiracy theories he believes, but this is a new level. Something's not right there, and I really hope that Republicans call out Trump the same way that they go after President Biden.
They're not going to. They will weekend at Bernie's his ass as far as they can. All right, so let's get into this Meet the Press interview with Trump. He was completely defiant throughout the entire interview. He also proved that he is still violently allergic to facts. Regarding the 2020 election lie, he stated clearly and boldly, "It was my decision." If you remember, he was previously claiming that every decision that he made was due to the advice of counsel. He also admitted that he wanted to stop the vote counting. For everybody thinking that he's going to get out of all of these court cases, these 4 indictments, and these 91 felony charges, no. Regardless of all the information that they had that led the grand juries to go, yeah, indict him. What's come out of Trump's mouth since the first indictment was handed down already removes every shadow of a doubt. He's going to jail. It's just a matter of, is the rest of the GOP going to take the preemptive measures of finally being honest with the public to avert a lot of violence in the street? That's the question. He refused to answer any questions about January 6th and his activity, most notably what he was doing in the White House dining room during January 6th. There seems to be a lot of questions going on regarding whatever was going on in that dining room on January 6th. I guess we'll find out during the course of one of these trials why everybody keeps asking him about that. He also says that he will testify regarding the documents case because he didn't delete anything and he turned everything over. But that's not what the allegations or the charges are. He called Jack Smith a lunatic, which is absolutely no change in the rhetoric. Trump claims that pardoning himself is unlikely. Some say that this is a sign somewhat of him listening to counsel. I take this as just more martyr posturing. He keeps positioning himself to be a martyr for the Macedonians. If given the chance, yes, he's going to pardon himself. That's why he was the very first person to throw his hat into the ring for the presidential 2024 election. Well ahead of any schedule, well ahead of historically how anybody would enter the race. He knew what was, and we know now that he had been warned that search warrants were on the way and all these different things. He knew he had to jump ahead of it. And he truly believes that he will be thoroughly protected as president. And that's also why he's backing Project 2025. Now, regarding abortion, Trump did take credit for the overturning of Roe. He said that regarding the 6-week ban, he said that it was a terrible mistake. He spewed abortion lies regarding late-term and post-birth abortion support by Democrats. And he said that he'd negotiate a compromise from both sides regarding abortion, but the whole goal of overturning Roe was for the states to decide. And he wouldn't say if this was an individual issue, a matter of individual choice, states determining, or the federal government determining. It's like he's trying to keep everybody happy because he doesn't know how to get into office at this point. I told y'all the last time was a fluke. It was a oopsie doodle. He did not expect to win the last time. Therefore, he has no idea what firm stance to have this time around in order to get in, because he has no idea what was the tipping point when he was elected in 2016. Trump also lied about the United States spending more on the Ukrainian war than Europe. He also misrepresented the Nord Stream pipeline. And real quick, all of his claims regarding the Nord Stream pipeline are 100% false. The Nord Stream pipeline is a natural gas pipeline from Russia to Germany. It was mostly completed before Biden took office. And Trump claims that Biden put the squash on that. And so many people in the United States really act as if the United States has control over the globe. That's why on a lot of these travel agency and tourist websites, people have made whole accounts laughing and joking about travelers from the United States, acting as if every place is supposed to be the United States. Honey, why did you travel there if you thought it was going to be just like the United States? But Biden was saying that, Biden squashed it. Now, for those of us that have a brain, but got to say it anyway, for full disclosure, whether or not the work on the pipeline moves forward, that decision lies with Germany and Germany alone. And when asked about pardoning the leader of the Proud Boys, Trump said, and I quote, "I'd like that." Now, speaking of Mr. Tarrio, Mr. Tarrio. Now, we know that he is currently sitting in prison. But did you know that he was on a Twitter call on Twitter Spaces about a week ago with Harrison Floyd? You didn't? That's okay. Pay attention. Here you go.
Spaces call from over a week ago with a group of January 6ers. And Enrique Tarrio was their guest speaker after his sentencing. At his sentencing, he said he was done with politics. Well, not according to this call, Henry. There were over 25,000 people on the call, including Marjorie Taylor Greene and Harrison Floyd, who is one of the ones who is charged with RICO down in Georgia. And he was asking Enrique Tarrio for legal advice so that he could beat Fani Willis. It's absolutely ridiculous. These people talk about how they've lost their First Amendment rights. How is a prisoner dialing in for well over an hour to give an interview with 25,000 people, riling everybody up? It's just absolutely absurd. And then some guy, Patrick Byrne, donated $100,000 to Enrique's legal fund during the call. And then the whole call, they were just asking people to send him money. All right, I'm going to play 2 clips.
I'll be honest, like I told you last time, when I stood there in front of the judge, I was expecting more. I was expecting 25, 27, 30 years. That's what I thought the judge was going to say. And, when the judge handed down a 22-year sentence, it's like my Stockholm syndrome went off. And I was like, oh, wow, thank God he didn't give me, 25, 27, and 30 years. And, after a little while, it certainly started to kick in. I mean, this is a quarter century.
So Enrique Tarrio himself thought he was going to be getting more time. Good job, Judge.
I think you've explained it pretty well with full theory, but that is what they're going to use to convict Trump. That's what they're going to use to convict Trump. And I say, because I want you guys to prepare yourself, because that's what they are going to do. This isn't if, maybe, or something is going to come down. They're going to go ahead and they're going to put Trump through trial, before election, and if a decent jury gets their hands on it, they will convict him. Okay? That's what's going to happen. This isn't a scare tactic. I'm not fear mongering. I'm telling you the truth. and I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Did you hear that, MAGA? Trump is going to prison. So you better buckle up. I just stumbled.
Now keep in mind, Tario got 22 years in prison. And goofy ass Harrison Floyd was like, let me call in and get some legal advice from him. Don't forget, Harrison has a daughter. Harrison was struggling to crowdsource for an attorney until an attorney that didn't even tell him that they had a law firm that didn't even tell Harrison that they had taken up his case started crowdsourcing. $100,000 was sent on behalf of Tario. The closer one is complexion-wise to whiteness, and the more that they are willing to stand and say what white racists want to say to non-white people, the more they'll back it. Just like that gentleman that's going viral on TikTok right now, talking about if somebody called him the N-word, he wouldn't do nothing. Excuse me, trying to make it seem as if those that react are childish or don't have self-control. Instead of saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't say disrespectful shit to people. And people are all up in his comments wanting to be his friend and buy him a beer. Now, as day 3 of the UAW strike has come to a close, let's get into it. This week, White House representatives will join the strike talks. And the annual salaries of the top 3 CEOs from the automotive industry. GM, Mary Barra, $29 million. Ford, Jim Farley, $21 million. Stellantis, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. My apologies. That's Carlos Tavares, $24.8 million. Now, I was not, obviously, familiar with Stellantis, but here are their brands. Abarth, Alfa Romeo or Romeo, Chrysler, Citroen, Dodge, DS Automobiles, Fiat or Fiat, I've heard it pronounced both ways, Jeep, Lancia, Maserati, Opel, Peugeot, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ram, Vauxhall or Vohall, Freedom Move, and Leases. Now, the UAW workers, these are their key proposals. This is what they want. 40% hourly pay increases, a reduction in the work week to 32 hours, which is doable. I, in my 20s, worked for a company. Their full-time hours were 35 hours max. Production was all the work got done. Nobody ever needed to work overtime. It's doable. They want to shift back to traditional pensions. They want the elimination of compensation tiers, which is what they agreed to in order to save the automotive industry. And evidently is doing well if everybody's making over $20 million in the position of CEO. And they want the restoration of cost of living adjustments, COLA, C-O-L-A. And they want enhanced retirement benefits and enhanced vacation and family leave benefits, which is plausible. Now, let's see the defense of the other side. Get ready to clutch your pearls.
Seen a 34% pay increase in your salary. You make almost $30 million. Why should your workers not get the same type of pay increases that you're getting leading the company?
Well, if you look at compensation, my compensation, 92% of it is based on performance of the company. I think one of the strong aspects of the way our compensation for our represented employees is designed is not only are we putting a 20% increase on the table, we have profit sharing. So when the company does well, everyone does well.
But if you're getting a 34% pay increase over 4 years and you're offering 20% to employees right now, do you think that's fair?
I think when you look at the overall structure and the fact that 92% is based on performance, and you look at what we've been doing of sharing in the profitability when the company does well, I think we've got a very compelling offer on the table, and that's the focus I have.
Okay, so watching this chick answer this question, this CEO chick, it reminds me of Claire on that one episode of Modern Family that does that kind of number dump that when she was trying to rein in Cameron's spending like this.
It's less expensive.
Well, it's still over budget, but I guess it's okay. Yeah. By the way, we couldn't get the powder room fixtures you wanted.
What? Why?
Well, they're 23% or $982 over the budget. Keeping in mind that space is only 12% of 1,462 square feet. Whenever I need to rein in Cam spending, I employ something that I like to call the number dump. So unless you want to cut 16% or $1,764 from somewhere in the flooring budget, we've got to find another 4% from the overall.
No, as long as they're pretty, it's fine. It's fine.
Yesterday, I accidentally said 11D5.
And also, let's not forget, this CEO said that her pay is based on how well the company does. I would have asked her, what does she know about how well the company does? Because most CEOs have no idea what's going on a daily basis. They're not doing anything to increase productivity. They're forcing corporate. And if you're on any social media platform, anybody working in any type of customer service, retail, anytime there's a corporate number for somebody to call because Karen and Richard can't get their way, they're forcing them to do the work. People don't need cars every year. How do you think the automotive market is sustaining itself? These car salesmen, and even the people who work at the factories, they end up becoming car salesmen themselves. They get a little bit of a discount on certain models of cars. They drive around and of course they're going to big up the company. I have an uncle that retired from GM. As far back as I can remember, that man had the slickest GM car that was out there. And every time somebody saw his new shiny car, oh, what's it? And he would, all the bells and whistles. It's the underlings that are doing all the work, but getting virtually none of the pay. Okay. Now, for our final update of the night. Whew. You know what? Let's start with the video, and then I'll give you my notes. Fascism in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, the Republican-controlled state Senate voted Thursday to oust Megan Wolf, the state's top election official. Wisconsin's Democratic Attorney General, Josh Kaul, immediately filed a lawsuit seeking to block her ouster. The elections administrator position is a nonpartisan office, but after Donald Trump narrowly lost in Wisconsin to Joe Biden in 2020, Republicans and far-right interests began harassing Megan Wolf and spreading misinformation about election fraud. In more news from Wisconsin, Planned Parenthood will start performing abortions again next week in a major win for reproductive rights there. Following last year's overturning of Roe v. Wade at the U.S. Supreme Court, Wisconsin Republicans used an 1849 state law to justify an abortion ban, putting providers and patients in limbo. This is Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin President Tanya Atkinson.
The uncertainty about the enforceability of Wisconsin's 1849 abortion law has been devastating for Wisconsin women and people across the gender spectrum who need abortion care. A ruling by the Dane County Circuit Court in July made it clear that the 1849 law is not enforceable for voluntary abortions.
So let's get into it. Keep in mind, the GOP previously supported / backed Megan Wolf, the partisan administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And it wasn't until September 14th that the GOP led the vote to oust her. In 2018, they nominated her to head the Wisconsin Election Commission, and in 2019, she was confirmed unanimously by the state Senate. In 2020, that's when the backing changed, when Biden won and conspiracy theories and lies took precedent. Claims surfaced that Wolf was a part of the plot to rig the election in Wisconsin in favor of Biden. Yes, the former darling of the Wisconsin GOP was accused of being a part of rigging the election in favor of Biden. This is how insane the election. Every time I bring you a GOP conspiracy theory, they are wilder and wilder and wilder. And I'm like, adults are believing this. Adults, not children with no life experience of living life on their own, of having to make full on life or death decisions. Adults, and adults that many times have been on this earth longer than the rest of us. And these are the same adults that want to give us life advice, that want to tell us how we're living our life wrong, want to tell us that cutting out a cup of coffee every day is all of a sudden going to make us a millionaire. But they're not millionaires. Megan Wolf went from being let me repeat this for y'all. In 2019, she was unanimously voted in. And now they're claiming that she did it all for Biden. And the fact that they are so willing to believe people would throw away their entire careers for it goes to show what they are willing to do, what they fantasize about doing for their favorite politician. Like, this is really starting to turn into like the DC versus Marvel wars in the world of comic books. I guess. But thank you all for sticking it out for me for this update. Like I said, because we're just a little bit over an hour. This was a lot. Wasn't expecting all of this to happen over the weekend, but I will see you all tomorrow. If anything else happens, I'll try to get it up and update it for you all as quickly as possible. As always, make sure you check out the links in the description of this video. And if you enjoyed tonight's podcast, make sure you share it on your social media platforms and bring a friend with you tomorrow. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And make sure you join me in the afternoon for learning through Black literature. Till tomorrow, y'all.